So our job is actually creating an atmosphere that's conducive for people to meet God, for people to encounter God on the road, for people to actually, have tangible encounter relationship with God, and prepare the way. Is like the things that we're doing and building a local church. It's so deep. And I think about us being a prepare the way people. To be a reformer, to be a change agent, is to be like a person in a John the Baptist spirit, to be a person who actually paves way for God to move. And so that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight. And Isaiah 40, verse 3, and to kick this off, it says, "The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God." So in the Gospels, we see this similar proclamation through John the Baptist's life. And it's really this prophetic calling. When we hear that about John the Baptist in the Gospels, it was a prophetic calling out of the prophet Isaiah. And so we are admonished from the prophet Isaiah and from the Gospels that we actually are a people who have a proclamation over our life in the earth. There's a declaration everywhere we go, and everything that we do revolved around our life as individuals and as a church. Is the idea is that there's actually a breakthrough of God's coming. There's a breakthrough of God actually coming in a sense of like his second return, that we actually await a return of Jesus, but also in the reality of his presence here and now, and that God is actually through his Spirit and through the work of Jesus and the body, the church, he's actually coming now. Like I'm thinking about my life was so broken. My life was so damaged. Like I was so lost. And God actually came to me. We have a God who's actually like here, present, coming, embracing people. And when we think about ministry in church and building a local church, we think about making a highway. We're thinking about actually the reality that what we do opens up something for God to move. And so we're admonished to prepare the way. John the Baptist modeled for us our function as believers and as the church to make a highway for God, to create roads for God to move, a place of movement, and actual ease of travel for God in the earth. So our job is actually creating an atmosphere that's conducive for people to meet God, for people to encounter God on the road, for people to actually, have tangible encounter relationship with God, and prepare the way. Is like the things that we're doing and building a local church it's so deep. We often socialize. I think in our culture, church has become so socialized. Social settings, a place for connection, a place for families, a place to bring kids, a thing to do. And it can be all of those things. It's community, but ultimately, like there's a deep calling to prepare the way for the Lord. And from our life is like a John the Baptist calling, a John the Baptist mandate that says, from my life, I have a responsibility to pay attention to the world around me and see to it that there's actual roads leading to God. There's actually paths leading to God. And when you prepare the way, you are doing just that. You and I are sort of put in this place where we're making access, travel, pathway, this sort of connection with God and people who need to encounter him. So what I want to talk about tonight is, what does that look like? What does it look like for us today? John the Baptist lived over 2,000 years ago, and the prophet Isaiah probably lived somewhere 2,800, 3,000 years ago, something in that nature. So that was a really long time ago. Culturally, that would be like landing on Jupiter today. It'd be like I mean, the culture was very different. And also the covenantal relationship that Isaiah had and John the Baptist had, being on the other side of the cross, the great sacrifice of Jesus, and the new humanity that was birthed out of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, the sacrifice, the given lamb for the sin of humanity, for salvation for the world, and so that we would actually have an inheritance and become co-heirs with Jesus in his divinity. And so Isaiah didn't have that. John the Baptist didn't have that. And so what does it look like for you and I today? How do we look at prepare the way from the scope, from a new scope of reality? And that new scope of reality is that we're a dwelling place people. That we're not, we don't have a veil between us and God. We actually have divine union. We have shared divinity. We have participation in the divine nature. We've been brought into this incredible reality as a new humanity of God. That God has birthed a new humanity from Jesus. And so what does it now mean for our context, for our scope, for our reality? And I wanted to share a few things. And I want to also blend this in from a practical sense, but also from an intimate sense, because I want this to be to us for understand this in a deep way, for this to hit us in a deep way, but also in a practical way. Is like, that's deep. That's has some form of intellectual property to it. It's real. It should influence the way I think, should influence the way I believe about who I am in God and what's available to me. And it should also just practically influence the way that we build up and do local church.